So Grayling, well, the record currently stands at £4 3 ounces, a huge fish caught from the River Froome in Dorset. That's a river that still continues to produce very big fish today. But if you're looking for somewhere where you're guaranteed to catch a decent grayling, well, you can't go any better than the River Test in Hampshire, a river steeped in grayling fishing history. And that's exactly where Mick and I headed off to. Well, here we are. This is the River Test at Timsbury Manor, and we've come here to fish primarily for grayling. And we really couldn't have picked much worse conditions, actually, Mick, because when you think about grayling, you normally think about those lovely frost-covered banks, bright blue skies. It's been blowing a gale, pouring with rain all night. The main river is absolutely storming through. And I actually think, Mick, our best chance of a big grayling is probably to fish one of these small carriers that feed the river, rather than the main river itself, because it's absolutely chocolate down there.
Yeah, that's our only chance, I think, now.
Lovely spot, though.
It is, yeah.
Let's give it a go anyway, mate. I've never seen the Test like this. It's up, it's coloured, it's choked with rubbish and debris. Thankfully, we've got a little outlet where at least we can still fish. Now, the Test is fed by water that comes from the Salisbury Plain, and because it's filtered through chalk, it's very clear. It's got luxuriant weed growth. Because of that, the water's full of invertebrates, underwater insects, and in turn, you've got loads of fish to feed on them. So it's a terrific river, and you've got a whole network of the main river itself and all of the carriers that feed it. It does flow, of course, through some really famous countryside, and there are lots of houses and country estates located along the banks of the Test. The river itself's a delight. It's absolutely crammed with fish, and I suppose these days it really is synonymous with grayling. I'm really looking forward to the next couple of days. The only problem is, I hope the weather perks up a bit, because at the moment we're going to be restricted to fishing in these carriers and side streams. Having said that, you know, sometimes they can hold a few surprises, so we'll see what happens.
You could easily walk past this little pool and think there's nothing in there, but I'm assured that it's full of grayling. The method I'm going to be using is a float. I'm going to use this quite fat-bodied Avon float. On the hook I've got a couple of maggots on a size 16 hook, but halfway between the float and the bait I've got my weights, and I put the weights there so that the bait will flutter up in the current and not be dragged along the bottom. I've actually undershotted this float quite a bit, because if I shotted it right down to the surface it would easily be lost in the turbulence. So I've shotted it so it's standing up about ½ an inch, and usually in this sort of water the bites don't tend to be very delicate. The fish are fighting the current, they'll shoot out, grab the bait, and I should get quite a vicious bite. Right, I've got another bait on. I'm going to run this down the pool, and I've been feeding it steadily. I'm feeling reasonably confident I'm going to get a bite.
Float's going through lovely now, absolutely lovely. It's been a textbook trotting. It's a shame the fish aren't playing ball.
Oh, just missed one.
Right, now this does feel like a grayling.
Well, there's the first bite.
Oh no.
Fish is fighting rather funny. It's almost as though I've foul hooked it. I think we better start again on this grayling fishing.
Dear me. Well, here we go again.
Oh, this feels like it might be a better one.
This is a real zoo creature, this one.
Oh, they don't half go out in that current. Oh. Well, I don't know what's going on here, but I've foul hooked this one as well.
Gotcha. Well, that was a good fight. They're a pleasant diversion, these trout. But when you're trying to catch grayling, they do disturb the swim a little bit. But you just have to put up with them, and they're out of season, so let's get this back in the water as quickly as possible.
I can't believe I foul hooked two of them.
I've got a rainbow trout this time. What I'm really after is a big grayling, and I think I've got one. No, it's another trout. Oh, crikey. It's absolutely alive with them. Tiny little hook just wedged in the top of his mouth. There he is. I'll put him straight back. Sometimes you've got to kiss a lot of frogs to get a prince. As long as I don't have to kiss Mick Brown, we'll be alright. Well, it's been lovely fishing here. I've caught a few trout, but I'm really not getting among the grayling, so reluctantly I think I've got to move on. I know that Mick's getting a few fish down in the little mini weir pool down there, so maybe I've got to get into more turbulent water. I'm going to have a little wander downstream and see if I can find some grayling.
Oh, I got that one. Oh, it's not a very big one, but I got it. Quite frustrating, these little bites, really. You can't really make a delicate presentation in that turbulent water. Oh, well, that's probably the littlest grayling I've ever seen in my life. Look at that. Obviously a miniature of the real thing. It really is a lovely little fish. It hasn't quite developed the big, impressive dorsal fin that it will as it gets older, but it's certainly on the way there. Right, let's get her carefully back. Right, the best thing is just to toss her out into the fast water. Then she's off. I just had one. I hooked it in the belly.
Well, it's been a funny old afternoon, really. Caught some big trout. Haven't had any big grayling, unfortunately, but we've got a full day tomorrow. One thing occurred to me, and that was while I was fishing for the grayling, that the colour of the water is absolutely perfect for roach, and there are some good roach here in the test, and I thought, well, why not try for them? I've actually hooked a fish here now, which is great. I've moved across to a different pool, and the colour in the water here is absolutely bang on for roach, so you never know, I might catch one. This one, ironically, feels like a grayling. Oh, it's come off. It was a good fish too, that. I'm fishing for roach, and I go and hook a grayling. It's a lovely little pool, this. It's got all sorts of fish in it. Trout, grayling, I'm told a few roach, so never know what you're going to hook next. And when the river's raging through as it is now, it's nice just to find a little bit of peaceful fishing.
Well, I've decided to ledger for the roach. I haven't got much water in front of me, it's very shallow, and I'm only using a very, very light ledger. In fact, it's only a BB shot, but it's enough just to hold bottom there. And I'm getting some bites and I'm starting to hit some fish now. Now the lights fade in, I think we're going to start getting some roach. I'm sure we are. We seem to have forgotten all about the grayling.
Oh yes, that was a nice bite. A little bit better, this one. Oh, it looks like a roach. It could be a roach. It is a roach. Look at this. Ha ha! I knew it. Oh, that's great, that. It's nice when you get something right for a change. There you are, a lovely river test roach. Look at that. Beautiful fish. Well, it's not quite a pound. It's probably about 12 ounces, this fish. Maybe a little bit more. It's a beautiful looking roach, though, isn't it? Perfect. Classic roach, of course. Silver scales, red fins. Wonderful fish, wonderful. Well, he took the bait confidently. You see, that's what happens when you get this coloured water. Roach are very shy biters when the water's low and clear, but when there's colour in the water like this, it's perfect for catching roach, particularly on these chalk streams. That's a lovely fish, that. Brilliant. Let's see if I can get a better one. Well, there's another roach. Not as big as the last one, but a roach nonetheless. And as the light's going quickly now, these fish are coming on the feed.
Well, I've really struggled to get a bite here. I put a teeny piece of worm on, something that I'm more used to seeing, and first run down, I got a grayling. There's not many river fish that don't go for a worm.
Well, the sport's really fast and furious now. Lovely fish. Well, this is an interesting fish. This is a big dace. Now, this might not look like a specimen fish to you, but it is. It's a fish probably weighing about 10 ounces. The dace record currently is about £1.25. Now, that makes this a very big fish, believe it or not. Now, that's a lovely fish, come on. Well, I suppose it was inevitable I'd get a trout in the end. Really pretty colours. I hate catching trout out of season. They're so slippery and just seems a bit unfair, really. Well, it's literally pretty well dark now, but I'm still fishing and I've hooked something big here. I can't see what it is. It must be a trout. And what the heck's that? It's quite big. Oh, it's still pulling away from me. Well, this was the old one last cast syndrome here. Definitely had to have one. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's a monstrous trout. It's a mutant from Mars. Look at this. Really big brown trout, that. Long, lean, fit old fish. Well, that was a good finish. I really enjoyed tonight, actually. Caught loads of fish. Nice roach. Then a big trout at the end. So it's been a lot of fun, and at least the weather got a little bit better. We've got another day tomorrow, and whether we can fish the main river or not remains to be seen, because the forecast for tonight is more rain, so we may have to continue on the carriers. But with the fishing in this form, I don't think Mick's going to mind. I know I don't, so we'll see you tomorrow. Well, this morning we've managed to get onto the main river. The colour's dropped out. It's still running quite high, but look at this. First trot of the day, and I've latched into a sea trout, which is amazing in January because this is a fish that comes into the river not to feed but to actually breed. I'm going to get it straight back in the river because we need this one to go up and spawn. There he goes, ready to swim. Well, that's a good start. We've taken a decision today really to try and fish the main test. This is the river test. Normally the water is much clearer than this. There's quite a lot of colour in the river today, but not nearly as much as there was yesterday when there was a lot of drifting debris. So we're hoping today that we can catch some really nice grayling off the main river. So fingers crossed. Well, I've dropped a little bit further down the run and I've hooked into a grayling here. It's a classic sort of grayling fight. You can feel the fish gyrating and twisting in the current. This one's a male fish. It's got a great big dorsal fin. And that's the main difference between the males and the females. When you see them turn across the current like that, the male's got this huge dorsal fin which it uses to maximum advantage. It's a beautiful fish. Look at that. Gotcha. Well, that's a nice grayling, that one. Fabulous. Look at that. Fantastic grayling. Beautiful big dorsal fin on it, like a sailfish. Incredible, look at that. Fabulous colours. And they're really wiry, even at this size. They're the most difficult fish to hold on to, grayling. Beautiful specimen, that one. Lovely. This is really first-class sport. I'm getting a grayling of chuck now and they're almost under my feet. They've moved right up for this feed. You can see that the dorsal fin on the other fish was much larger. So this is a female grayling.
Well, I've struck into this one and it feels like I'm on the bottom. Well, it's not the grayling we came for, but it's been a great pleasure to fish it.
That's another sea trout, I think. Well, I'm just going to try a piece of sweet corn on the hook. This one's a good stamp. It's made a right old mess of my hook lip. That's not a bad fish.
Another reasonable size grayling. There it is, a typical river test grayling. Back she goes. Well, we just don't seem to have got the bigger fish. I've stuck with the maggots because they're producing the most bites. I've tried worm. There's still a little bit of time left, but the weather's really shutting down on us now, so we're really going to make the most of these last few minutes and see if we can pull something out of the bag, but it's not looking very likely at the moment. This is a better than average one anyway. Look at it running upstream. I've got it beat, I think. Yes, got it.
Got a nice grayling on here.
But I'm trying to do him a favour and take the hook out of his mouth, but he just won't keep still.
Best behaved grayling so far.
I'm in. Oh, what we got here? What have we got this time? Oh, it's a grayling, I think. Yeah, it's quite a nice one, actually. Slip the net under this one. Oh, in you go. Oh, well, we're not giving up on this. We're fishing to the last, and this could be one of the last fish I get, and it's not a bad grayling, actually. In fact, it's probably the best one I've had so far. And just like the others, it's like a bar of soap. Well, I don't know whether it made any difference, but for the last hour or so I went down to a lighter float and a smaller hook. Still 2 maggots on the hook, and I had a really positive bite and I got a better fish. Whether that was the reason, I don't know, but we've certainly ended with a nice one. It's not a 2-pounder, it's not probably too far off, but I think we've got to be pleased with that. Considering the weather conditions and the water conditions, we've had a pretty good time here on the test, caught plenty of fish, and that's a nice one to finish with.
So, you've watched the series, you might be wondering what happens next. What happens if I go out and I catch a record fish? What have I got to do? Who do I speak to? What procedure do I follow? Well, fortunately, here at the Natural History Museum in London, the answer is at hand, because this guy here is Oliver Crimmen. He's the fish curator at the Natural History Museum, he's a fish scientist, and he's also, by pure coincidence, a member of the British Rod Caught Fish Committee. So, Oliver, what's the basic procedure for claiming a record fish, first of all?
Well, it's a very exciting thing to happen. You don't want to forget to get the details right at the time. You've caught the big fish, you need to have that capture witnessed, you need to have the fish accurately weighed, and you need to contact the British Record Fish Committee. And you want to have good photographs if you're going to return the fish to the river. We don't like to kill fish, but there is a problem where identifications can be doubtful.
What are the sort of details are you looking at? Is it things like number of scales along the lateral line?
That's very important. If the fish's fins are held up so that we can see the number of spines and rays in the fins, that's important. But certainly a good lateral view, a view from the side, which includes the whole fish.
So you're looking for detail.
Yes.
But of course, then there are going to be those occasions when it's not clear cut, aren't there?
Unfortunately, if there is a case where the evidence isn't tight enough for us to make a confident identification, then we can't ratify the record.
Okay, so it's a fairly straightforward process. The more detail that you can give, the better. Remember to take good close-up photographs as well, anything that will help these guys in their jobs. I've got to ask you before I leave here, Oliver, this is an amazing place actually. Just describe to people, what are in these jars around the outside of the room?
Well, the museum's collection of fishes spans the whole world and goes back to Captain Cook's fishes, Darwin's fishes, and occasionally a record fish from one of our present angling fraternity.
It really is fantastic. Been a great experience coming here to the Natural History Museum, but the most important thing is that if you do catch that fish of a lifetime, you know what to do.